George Santos has scheduled a news conference for 8 o'clock in the morning on the Capitol steps tomorrow. Unclear what he has planned, but no one seems to expect that he will resign. What are you hearing?
Yeah, it's going to be an extraordinary 24 hours. George Santos and his love-hate relationship with the press and with his colleagues is continuing. He hasn't really given any hints about what he's going to say at this press conference on the Capitol steps tomorrow, but he's been telegraphing it for 2 weeks. There's a lot of anticipation. One thing we don't necessarily expect is a resignation. He's maintained his innocence throughout. He has insisted that he will not resign. He has been raging on Twitter against some of his colleagues and against some of the allegations against him. We might hear more of that. But then an unprecedented, really, third vote to expel him from the House of Representatives scheduled by the end of the day, Thursday, maybe into Friday.
Yeah, Julie, Gregory makes a good point that this is going to be the third time the House has tried to expel George Santos. It requires 2/3 of the members to vote for that. And it's a question for Republican members who are looking at potentially thinning their majority even further. Ultimately, would him leaving the House help or hurt Republicans more?
Well, I think what would possibly hurt Republicans more is having all this information out there and not voting on expulsion, because at that point it may appear in the court of public opinion that this is happening due to the fact that they want to keep the majority. But you're looking at a majority of 3 votes versus 4 votes. That's a pretty slim Joe, as you know, right there as it is. So I think it would be very surprising. This time around, there seems to be more steam to do this, and there's also a new speaker. So they've already put it out there. I'd be surprised if anything changes.
Well, that's why I wonder, Gregory, if Republicans will actually be able to run on this and say, hey, look, we're the party that was responsible enough to stand by principles and even whittle down an already narrow majority in the name of doing the right thing.
Perhaps, but remember, there's already been 2 votes that they are on the record on and not expelling him. And I would expect in some districts across the country, you will have Democrats already crafting attack ads saying, my opponent, the Republican congressman, voted to keep this George Santos, who is infamous. Let's face it. I mean, this is a guy who, this is not any sort of garden variety Washington scandal. This is a scandal that is really permeated the national consciousness. People understand this. They know what it's about. He's been ridiculed on late night television for really a year now. And so this is the unusual Washington scandal that I think does have some currency outside of the media markets in New York and in Washington.
Well, it will become a question of what the New York electorate, Gregory, thinks about this. If indeed he is ousted and there's a special election to replace him, it seems that Democrats think this is their seat to scoop up. But Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis of New York was on with Joe on Sound On Radio earlier today, and she said she thinks they can keep the seat. How hard is that going to be realistically?
It's going to be a little bit of a lift. Remember that Santos won last year in a midterm election where crime really was an issue in New York. And it really sort of went against the national grain where Democrats overperformed in a lot of districts. You could argue that the Republicans only control the House today because of the New York delegation, and the local issues in New York swept in 5-6 Republicans who won seats that they had no business winning. This is a seat that Biden won by 8 percentage points. We'll have to see what the turnout dynamics would be in a special election if it comes to that. Special elections can be very unpredictable, but this is a seat that's definitely winnable for Democrats, and it would be surprising if Republicans were to keep it.
All the while, that aforementioned Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis of New York is in the throes of a grand debate over border security and immigration reform that could help to unlock funding for Israel, for Ukraine, and some of the other matters that the White House has requested, with tens of billions of dollars on the line. Julie, fine, I want to go to the border with you, but listen to what the Congresswoman first said about the elements of a potential compromise, because it sounds like members of both parties want to do something here. Let's listen.
The Republicans certainly want border security, but we're willing to work with the Democrats on more visas to make sure people can come and work legally. We do have an employment issue in our country where we have a worker shortage. This can be addressed. It could be a win-win if we do it right.
Julie, we're talking about potential changes in asylum law, as well as potential changes in the parole system, which appear to be the real sticking point here. How much could get done in the next few weeks?
I think something could get done. It's really a question of how much. I think they will try to push something through simply because This is an election year, and nobody wants a shutdown. Nobody wants that to happen right now. And I think there has been this major push, essentially from Republicans, but from some Democrats as well, especially in the more red states, that something needs to be done on immigration. So when you throw in all the foreign aid that many congressmen and women want, I would not be surprised if something immigration makes it through. Now, how sweeping it'll be, I think that's the real question there, because they have a short period of time. And as you know, for years, Congress has not been able to get massive immigration reform done. So if they get something done, I think it will be something. Don't expect it to be huge and sweeping.
Well, there are some in the House, Julie, who are saying they want H.R. 2. They want the border measure they already passed months ago, and that's what they are willing to settle for. That's not going to fly in the Senate, right? So how much is it an issue of just reconciling not Republicans and Democrats in the Senate, where they're trying to get this Ukraine funding issue sorted out, but Senate Republicans and House Republicans?
I think that you've seen this throughout this entire process in the past year or so. Reconciling Republicans takes a lot of work and doesn't always happen. But again, you are up against a deadline of a shutdown with many things going on throughout the world that will require foreign aid. So something is going to have to give, and nobody wants to be the party that is blamed for any type of government shutdown.
Well, we have a lot more to talk about in terms of the agenda moving forward here, including a potential impeachment inquiry that we thought was underway and has been essentially on ice since we got through the whole speaker battle. We heard from Steve Scalise on this, the majority leader today.
What you saw at the White House over and over again was a constant changing of the story. The White House has changed its story multiple times as the facts have emerged over and over again. We're going to be relentless at continuing to get the facts, all three committees, working through this impeachment inquiry to ultimately get the facts out.
Gregory, are we going to hear more about this in a real sense? Is there a hearing lined up, or do we have to get through the budgeting process, the funding process, get through these dates with a staggered CR in the new year before it gets real again?
Well, I mean, the date that's most important that's driving all of this is November 2024, right? There's an election next year. Certainly, this is an issue that former President Trump has pushed as it was a very successful tactic for him in 2016. Going after Hillary Clinton and all of her scandals. And now he's going to try to run that same playbook against Joe Biden with insinuations that there's something sorted here. Now, there's the details of all of this, and the evidence that Republicans purport to have is murky at best. There will have to be hearings and additional fact-finding to learn what's really at the root of this. But certainly you can expect to hear a lot more of this from House Republicans. This is a major thing that's animating the Republican conference.